Welcome to the video where I will talk about my finished works in Mythographic series. I decided to start from winter books, which are probably the most actual right now. So Mythographic Wild Winter and then Mythographic Frozen Fantasies. I really love Wild Winter. For me, pictures by Bank are more interesting comparing pictures of Atanasio. But here I had quality problems and I don't know why, but my Wild Winter starting to fall apart, so I have problems with binding. I really hate such things. I tried to glue it somehow, but with no success. Here I decided that I mostly prefer to work with pencils. In several books I also use markers, sometimes also paints, but I think that with pencils my work they look more accurate, especially when pictures are so detailed as works by Joseph Kettenbank. So I have the giraffe, I have this very lovely panda. I'm glad that I stayed with a lot of cold pastel colors and only bamboo as a contrast warm color. Very nice, very snow, and probably the most challenging part was how to add very light shading to the white fur on the head and body of panda. Lovely page, I really like it. This one is more dramatic. Here I did marker background to make it quicker, and of course I used a lot of white paint to make this snow, to make ice, and to make crystals. Again, my favorite way of working on contrasts of cold and warm colors. We have a lot of yellow, golden, brown colors on the bird, on the nest, on the babies, and everything is surrounded by quite harsh crystals, ice. So not very friendly atmosphere, but we still can feel mother's love and mother's protection. That's why I selected this page, and it was a pleasure to color it. I am not a big fan of pictures where we have those circles about sources of light. Here I had picture where all the lamps, lanterns and candles were surrounded by those circles. I tried to mask them as much as possible. In the end I decided that maybe it doesn't look realistic, those hard border on the halo, but okay, if artist decided in such a way, maybe let's do it, and maybe let's again play on the contrast between intense blue and warm yellow colors. Lovely bunny again. I was afraid that if I select mostly white color for the fur, it could be lost, especially because it's surrounded by snow, but here I used warm gray for shading. Here I did more bluish color for the snow, so I think that everything worked quite well. I hope that I will add something to this book during this winter season, but I'm very disappointed because of the cracked binding and that my pages start to fall apart. Well, Frozen Fantasies, it's one of my first books in this series. I never was a fan of previous books by Fabiana Attanasio when she illustrated fairy tales, but in Mythographic I really love her art, I love her pictures, so I have relatively big amount of finished pictures here and in other books from the same artist. Here I have my amethyst dragon. I think that it works quite well. Colors which I selected for the crystals and which I selected for the body. I don't know if you can see, but on top of this teal green I also added a little bit of pearl color, so it's a little bit shiny. Just some transparent watercolor in matching green color. In real life you can see this shining on the scales. Well, my biggest complaint about this book it's because it has a lot of pictures with very hard, thick black lines, especially lines on the things which probably, I don't know, they represent like movement. Oh, there are many strange things like this one. I can represent them only as an indication of the movement of the object, and other like this one, maybe that's snow. They are very traditional for pictures by Fabiana, and it's half of the problem. The second half, it's they are depicted with very thick lines, ridiculously thick, like for children. I prefer much more delicate work, like for example here we have, so it would be much better, especially considering that it's one of the first books where we still need to mask hidden objects, and in this book we have hidden objects totally not matching the subject of the picture. That's why I love to do dark background, that part of the hidden objects you can cover with those dark colors. I think that here my favorite part was to do those snowflakes, very beautiful, very elegant, with a white Posca pen. Well, I think that it's quite lovely. Nothing special, I just wanted to color some flowers during winter season, so it was a good opportunity. Another one where I tried to do acrylic background, and again those strange lines, I can't connect them to the main subject, but I decided that I won't cover them because there is not very balanced composition, a very busy left bottom corner, and the right top part. If I also mask this one, it would be really empty and unbalanced. I think that here I practice some budget pencils like Subcolor probably, or Arctics. Many of pictures in this book I did with budget pencils, because I do love paper and I don't mind to use from time to time my less professional sets. This one I did mostly because I wanted to do those icy blue flowers. It was the initial idea, and the rest I just added. Well, one of my favorite pictures is those penguins. Again, I did first watercolor sky background, and then I decided that it's too boring, so I splashed it a little bit with metal paints. I don't know if it's a good idea or bad. But what I do love is the bottom part with those pieces of ice surrounded by, how to call it, purple, probably flowers. Lovely color combo and nice page. And finally, I have this one. Again, I tried to mask majority of the hidden objects using matte gouache paint. I would say that it wasn't very successful because I can still see their shapes of those hidden objects, so it looks a little bit dirty. But I do love the head of the reindeer, and I do love the contrast of those vibrant blue flowers with the rest of the buildings here. So not bad, but I think that I had to mask better things on the background. That's the problem for many pictures with hidden objects. You try to hide them and sometimes they are still visible, so picture looks dirty. Next I have Wanderlust by Alessandra Fusi. I think that pictures by Alessandra are definitely were created using some program. They are not hand-drawn. Yes, probably it's created by herself, obviously, but using some electronic devices, because many objects, they are multiplied. You can see that she created collages from the different objects, and sometimes those collages, they are totally illogical. It's also a book with hidden objects, so it's another part of the problem. I don't think that Alessandra Fusi is an easy artist to color. For me, it was challenge every time. Majority of efforts again went to hiding all those objects and somehow trying to balance her strange collages. As my first page here, I remember that I did this giraffe page. I thought that maybe it's one of the easiest in the book, not many masked objects, and at least you can see what is the main focal point here. So obviously it's giraffe, and I wanted to color poppies. Here I'm not happy with the selection of pencils. I don't like how I blended colors here on many areas. I think that I had to, maybe I had to apply another layer for snake to look more vibrant. So something went wrong with the pencil choice. I don't like how they work on this paper. This one I did because it reminded me about books by Stephen King. It's clown, it's some, well, quite ugly insects. I don't know, but there is something threatening, maybe because of their size. And I decided that here I will try to hide majority of hidden objects thanks to the black background. It really helped to attract more attention to the tulips, to the circles building, but I remember that it wasn't a very easy task to color around all those lines and objects. Still, with such style of pictures, many finished works, they look still messy. That's why I would suggest to use a lesser amount of elements in mythographic books. This one I do love. Again, it was during winter season, but I still wanted to color something with flowers, so I selected this page with lovely birds, good contrast with the icy background. This one was really lovely. Again, here I do love those wooden heads, not much those leaves. And here I even decided to leave some hidden objects, at least the feather, the magical head, some chest with treasures and other objects, the goblet. I decided that okay, I can leave them, it's not so bad. I don't know why I struggle so much with Alessandra Fusi, and still I colored in her book much more comparing to other books which I consider more beautiful, like Aviary or Deep Blue, and where it's easier to color. It's totally illogical, I know. Okay, next I have Voyage by Kettenbank. This one I consider as one of the best in the series. But here I did my pictures using markers for the background, and somehow I wasn't very happy how I selected colors and how they blended. I remember that I hoped that marker background will help me to save time, but instead I masked not very successful areas using pencils on top of markers. Anyway, it's lovely, it has a lot of interesting details to look at. Here I love much more the balance between size of the picture and amount of details, and the most important, finally, it doesn't have hidden objects. I have only two pictures, both with marker background, and then I think that I mostly used polychromos pencils here, and I definitely need to continue coloring in Voyage. Paradise by Fabiana Attanasio probably is my most colored book in the whole series. Again, because it was one of the first which I purchased. And because here I don't feel any pressure, like pictures are not very dear for me, so you can color without feeling pressed that you mess up beautiful image. You color, you relax, you do something nice, okay? You don't like final result, okay, you go to the next page. So I have these sunflowers and planets. I have this magical tree, beautiful wisteria dancing. On both pictures I used watercolor for the background. Here I used acrylic paint for the mountain and for the sky. If you ask me why such color, mostly because I had the tube of this paint and I never used it, so I decided that at least somewhere I need to use it, and I decided that with pink flowers it could be a good contrast. The only reason. Lovely page where I also used a lot of watercolor for the background. For water it helped me considerably. And then budget pencils. I remember that for flamingo I used Star Joy pencils. Watercolor and pencils. It's interesting idea of this magical portal and of tree which is growing from the back of the turtle. Somehow here I don't think that it's disgusting. In books by Anna Carson, it bothers me when something is growing from the bodies of animals. Here it's not so bad, so I didn't mind to color this one. This one is one of my favorites. I really love color combo. For the background I used 2 shades of Arteza gouache, lovely colors, those blue greens or blue gray colors. I love those tubes. I hope that they are not dried completely and I will be able to use them somewhere else for some other projects. And then I decided to use very vibrant yellow-green colors to support the idea of spring, because we have spring daffodils, and they created very good contrast to the pastel colors on the unicorn's body. I think that it was one of my most successful shading on something which is presumably almost white, but you still need to shade it. So this mix of great lavender, a little bit of light blue, I really think that it worked really well. This one I don't like, just nothing interesting, and again many of those strange lines. Maybe here they represent sounds, but it was just too many of them. Nice Venice landscape inside of the glass globe, and nice lotus pond. Again, a lot of watercolors for the background, but well, now I wouldn't use those metal sparkles which I added to the background. This one is lovely, and I remember that I used Sucolor pencils. Somehow here some of them felt a little bit too dry, some felt normal, so I struggled a little bit on the background, but I do love color combo. I do love how shiny looks the body of the seahorse, and how successfully I managed to mask all the hidden objects. Indeed, they look hidden. Oh, here I exaggerated, really exaggerated with metallic paints. The whole background is shiny blue, shiny violet, and it's probably the only reason why I did this one. I wanted to play with metal paints. I'm glad that for this one I decided to use unusual color for the merry-go-round roof and for the background. Traditionally we select red color for the merry-go-round, it's much more popular, but I decided to use slightly different color palette. I think that it worked really well. It's watercolor paint but with minimal amount of water, and it's mix of Prismacolors and polychromoses. Definitely polychromoses on animals. Again, those lines so traditional for Fabiana in each of her books. On each picture here I think that she wanted to show the movement of merry-go-round, but sometimes it's a little bit stupid to add them everywhere. Also, one of my favorites. Here I was lucky that there weren't many ugly objects, and if there were, I managed to mask them. Only one is barely visible, but thanks to the rich and mostly dark colors, I think that they were masked quite securely. I do love how the body of the dragon created this vibrant frame around the main image. Simple but lovely, because I love to work with such colors, and I'm glad that I decided to do slightly more vibrant clouds here. And finally, this anchor. It started from almost a disaster, because I tried to do background with wax crayons like distress. They didn't reacted well when I applied water, so instead I had to cover it with pencils, with markers, with anything I owned. But in the end it added nice depth to the background. And I remember that I did it when fall season started, so it was quite natural to select a lot of warm yellow, orange, brown colors for the leaves. I love to color metal, so that was the main reason why I decided to color it. Well, sometimes it's nice to color in this book, because pictures are relatively easy. Next I have Deep Blue by Fabiana. I think that it's the best among Fabiana books which I own. So here I did the mermaid for one of the mermaids. Lovely, finally without hidden objects, so it was much easier to color. Again, it's mix of Prismacolor pencils. I think that everyone can recognize Great Lavender Clay Rose on the shell, then Polychromos pencils and markers. But it's not my favorite page. My favorite page in this book, it's this dream about whales. When I just got the book, I immediately knew that I want to do this page. Interesting, very lovely composition, very well balanced, right amount of details, and very interesting to color. I decided that as whales themselves are not very colorful, I am allowed to do more colorful galaxy background with watercolor around them, and then much more warmer color for the inner part of the bedroom. I also decided to add some magical touch like halo around the lantern and also around the book. Maybe this dream about whales, the girl, she's dreaming because of the book she was reading before she went to sleep. So I think that it's lovely. I'm also proud of myself how I did shading on the white line and how I did texture of wood. So it's definitely one of my best works. And that was all, because even if I have more books, all this pile, they all are untouched. I'm thinking about creating maybe the month of Mythographic somewhere in March, so I will color only in Mythographic books, because it's a shame. In this pile I have books which I love much more comparing to the previous pile. Maybe not Odyssey and maybe not Dreamweaver, but Cosmic Spirit and especially Avery. They are really very lovely. A very great book. Cosmic Spirit also, I think, quite easy to color. Well, about Illusion, I'm not sure. It's my one and only book by Diego Weisberg, so I can't tell anymore. When I look at the pictures, they look complicated. But I think that I just need to start, and it will be easier to create my own opinion about his works. And this pile is the reason why I don't purchase any more books, even if I admire many new books in this series, and I'm very curious to try books from the new artists like Veronika Kalinsky and other, but I told myself, you at least need to start these books, and only then you will think about purchasing more. But I am happy that I have these books, and I am happy that Mythographic continues to create good books. There will be the newest book by Kattenbank about dragons. Very nice. I also love the Magical Apothecary, something like this. So another reason why I need to do the month of Mythographic, to justify purchasing more Mythographic books in this series. Well, thank you for watching. I hope that you also continue to color in mythographic books. I really need maybe to look at others' work to have some inspiration. It was one of my biggest regrets when I realized that probably for last 6 months I totally neglected my mythographic series. I promise to return to them.